But you did mention that you did a ton of past papers. Again, I can relate to that. I did, something like 30, maybe it wasn't as many as you, but something like 30-ish 4-unit past papers before the HSC, probably a similar amount before the trials. But what I found is, and obviously this didn't happen to you, but I did find that I'd probably overdone the past papers. And I think that can happen when you don't go back to the textbook and go back to the more basic questions. And I feel like looking back, that was my one error where I focused too much on the past papers and not enough on just going back and doing the more like rudimentary stuff from the textbook, because then I kind of got overwhelmed and my mind, it was all becoming, this big blur of just questions in my head. And then I got to the exam and I wasn't thinking that clearly. And that was the reality. It was my worst exam, right? Didn't really matter because it has the advantage of scaling, so it kind of saved me. But I underperformed the most in that subject, and I remember feeling like it was because I had done more past papers than anyone else I knew, but I hadn't probably gone back to the basics or taken a break from it. So what do you say to that? Do you find that didn't really happen to you, and more the better, or did you ever feel like you were afraid of overstudying?
Yeah, I think overstudying was something I was very afraid of. I felt like I definitely felt like, because like you get to the point where you just feel like it's getting way too repetitive and you feel like I've done all these questions before. But come the HSC, the 4-unit exam was really horrible last year. I definitely underperformed in it. I panicked because there were questions that I did not know how to do, because I think I'd overstudied and I was just in a state of comfort with 4-unit that I felt like, yeah, I can tackle anything. And then I got to the exam and there were questions that I hadn't seen before. I didn't know how to do them. And I just panicked and stressed my way into not being able to get them out. When after the exam, I realized that I could have quite feasibly done them. So yeah, I think there is that balance that overstudying can have its dangers. As long as you're doing lots of stuff resources in tandem. And like at the same time, if you feel like you're prepared, don't be afraid to stop studying. Like I always made sure that I stopped studying the day before the exams because I don't want to stress myself out too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, such obviously, we can relate to each other's experience there. But I was going to say as well on that, I remember in the exam, I was so stressed out. And sorry, let me go back to my key point. If the more papers you do, potentially the more pressure you're putting on yourself for that subject, which is what created that mental block for me, I feel, in that, right? Not only that I wasn't familiar with all the basics, I was only used to doing questions, but I felt like I'd committed so much to it and I'd prepared so much for it that I didn't take that break, like you said, before going in, that I was just all a mess right up here. So there was a big mental block and I had like brain fog or whatever, and I just couldn't think of the solutions that I should have been able to. And I've actually seen that happen with myself at university as well. Like there's been subjects that I've been so over-invested in, I've cared too much about them, and then bombed out in the exam and felt immense anxiety going into it. So you need to be really careful how much weight you put on any particular subject.
Our year group was lulled into this false sense of security with last year's paper being really easy and then our paper being really hard in comparison. And I think that's something that's important in 4-unit maths, to just know that it's okay if you can't do some of the questions. Like as you said, it is a forgiving subject. Like it is very hard. Like if you think back to like when you're in year 9, if you looked at a 4-unit maths paper and thought, I'm going to be able to do that in 4 years, that's kind of crazy. Like that's pretty cool to be able to do that level maths.
Yeah, for sure. I still look back at it, I'm like, that's like the hardest subject I'll ever do, relative to how old I was. So, and unless you do university maths, like I don't think you're really going to get questions much harder, right? So if for anyone doing 4-unit or even 3-unit, like props to you, because it's a difficult subject, but you've just got to know how to approach it to optimize your results there.